We have 4 young gentlemen that are here for their poli-sci class, is that it?
Yeah.
So if you guys want to come up front, and then we get you on camera so Mrs. Saylor knows that you were here, and you can lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's go. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
We probably would firstly have them introduce themselves and why they're here.
Yes, what? You gentlemen go to the podium, please, and introduce yourselves. And
I started last one.
it's always a pleasure having young adults to our meetings.
So I'm Ben Martushik, and I'm here because we have to attend an extra political event for our political science class through the high school, and so yeah, that's why I'm here.
Riley Schaefer and what he said.
All right.
Lake and Gar-Ice, same thing.
Daniel Turner, and I'm going with the same thing too.
Okay. Well, thank you, gentlemen, for being here. And now you can make your teacher watch the video of this. You know, she verified that you were here. So, okay. First thing is to approve the agenda. Does anyone have any changes, additions, corrections to the existing agenda?
Move to approve. Second.
I got a motion by Amy Jurek, second by Maggie Bass to approve the agenda as stated. So if there's no other comments, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Okay, the agenda is approved. First thing on the agenda, Patty, are you going to do the introduction?
Mayor and Council. Today we will have the acceptance of the 2017 annual financial report. I also have Kyle Meyers and Aaron Edstad of Abdo, Eick and Meyers here. They will go through a slide presentation and explain how great the city of Prague did this year.
Thank you, Patty. Good evening, Mayor and Council and citizens of the City of New Prague. I'm Kyle Meyers and Audit Manager Aaron Edstad to present the results of the 2017 audit. The audit opinion is an unmodified or clean opinion, same as it's been in the past. The city did implement one new standard, accounting standard, governmental accounting standards, board statement number 75 related to post-employment benefit plans. Other than pensions, it was required to be implemented in 2018 when the city chose, because it had not had an actuary performed in a few years, to have that actuary performed, and then that was implemented during the current audit. The city does have one continual finding here, the segregation of duties. Just basically, we have payroll and cash receipts where some of the accounting staff are doing, overlapping some of the functions such as custody of the asset, approvals, reconciliations process. So if there's anything that can be done there, but again, with a small government like yours, that's a common finding with small governments. Some of the other common findings that we see are audit adjustments and financial statement preparation, which we still do assist the city in preparing the financial statements, so we feel the city has an adequate understanding of the financial reporting process and not have that being a significant deficiency. Financial results, the city's total net position increased $387,000 compared to an increase of $921 the previous year. The increase in this year was due to an increase in charges for services and capital grants and contributions. And then your governmental funds had a decrease in fund balance of $4.3 million. Majority of that was you paid off a bond issue from previous year, 2013B, from an escrow, which reduced your fund balance by about just under $3.4 million. And then the city contributed, used up existing reserves of $1.1 million for the construction of indoor pool facility. And about 47% of the total amount is available for spending at the city's discretion, or $6.7 million of the $14.2 million there. So that's just in a nutshell the changes in the financial position of the city for 2017. Now Aaron's going to go over the results of the governmental funds.
Yeah, so you'll see here, this is the general fund. So this is the general fund unassigned fund balance, or this is the budget, and then this is looking at your unassigned fund balance. So you show here that it has 50% of your next year's expenditure budget, which is the policy, and it's been very consistent over the past 4 years. That then on the next page, this is going to be what is assigned up and above that 50%. Here's some of the different reserves, different projects that you guys have in place for the remaining pieces of the fund balance in the general fund. There. Then we have general fund operations. This looks at your budget compared to your actual amounts. Probably the main difference here, I just wanted to point out, this transfer is out for $495,000. This was a contribution that the general fund made for the water park. So that was that. The remaining amount for the water park came from the general projects, capital project fund, but the general fund contributed that. So the net change was budgeted for a $200,000 surplus, but you guys came in $229 deficit. But really, you did much better than that if you take out that $500,000 transfer. So, so overall, the general fund did very well this year. And you'll see some of the kind of other variances down here. Not pretty minor though. Here you'll see the general fund revenue by source. The major change this year is this other, which is the transfer in. So that's going to be the transfer from the general projects capital project fund for that pool. Otherwise, all your other revenues stayed fairly consistent from prior years. Then general fund expenditure, the same thing. This purple is the culture and rec, so that's where all of the expenses came out for the pool. And then the other one was the transfer out, which is cool. So everything's kind of driven by the pool. That was the major change this year, so that. Here's the special revenue funds. No major changes. A couple of funds closed, and then we opened with new funds. So those were kind of closed out, and then created the 16 and 17 small cities project funds. This just lists out all of your outstanding debt. So it takes a look at what in your debt service funds, what's your cash investments, your total assets, and the outstanding debt, and then when they will be paid off. Then on this next slide, this is a good graph that kind of maps out kind of your future principal and interest payments over the next 10 years. So you kind of look to see it's pretty steady and then has a big drop off, which I'm guessing with your 2020 project, this will change. But this is a good time, right around this time is a good time to think about bonding it, keep those debt levies pretty consistent and even. And this just looks at your capital project funds, different activities. Again, here is your general project, capital project fund. The major change was that the pool expenses. So, then Kyle will take a look at the enterprise funds.
As you see these enterprise fund graphs, there's two graphs. There's the cash flow graph, which shows your operating receipts, the blue bar, and how that compares to the operating costs and the debt service payments. So really the intent of enterprise funds are to provide sufficient revenues to at least cover your operating costs and debt service payments. You can see the water fund, except for this, obviously that would have been a refunding payment, but pretty much has been in a positive position. So anytime you see the blue bar exceed these two, that means your rates are sufficient to cover the costs. And you can see the cash balance over the last 4 years, 1.4 million. You're about the same position you were 4 years ago with a little bit of a drop last year and a build up of funds here. Again, kind of like with the general fund, you need some money for cash flow purposes. Obviously, the 35 to 50% is what's recommended because the city doesn't get its funding from the state and through property taxes from the county. Basically, in the 5th and 6th months of every 6-month cycle, which would be like May, June, and November, December. So same with your enterprise funds, you want to have anywhere from a 3 to 6 month, and this would be a 6-month cushion to cover your operating costs, and then 1 year's debt service payment. So that blue line here is that number, the 50% of operating costs plus next year's debt service payment. Then the amount above and beyond there to what you have in cash in the fund is monies that have been built up that you can use for capital needs. So in this fund, the water fund, you have what, 827,000 in cash and 1.4 million, or 1.4 million in cash and 827 as the required minimum. So you have about $600,000 that if you wanted to do a capital project, you wouldn't necessarily have to borrow that if you want to spend that down to the minimum. But that's really the purpose of those excess, basically the gap between what the minimum requirement is here and there. Because you want to, be able to build up funds so that you don't have to always borrow all the time when you do capital projects. So when you look at any of these, you can see sewer fund is operating well, has excess receipts over operating costs and debt service. You can see debt service in the sewer fund is quite substantial. You can see you've got, your debt has been decreasing, but you started out with $30 million 4 years ago, and it's down to almost 28.7 million here. So, but also you can see your cash balance has been increasing over the last 4 years. The minimum requirement would be about 2.3 million, and you have about 6.8 million. So you really have about $4.1 million for possible capital needs, plus, I believe, your debt service requirements for this bond down here will increase in future years. So you've got some cushion built up to cover the future increased debt payments and then fund any internal capital needs within the fund. Electric utility, kind of the same thing. You can see the excess receipts over disbursements there, and you can see that there is no green bar there, so you don't have any debt in the electric utility fund. Cash balance has increased from 4 years ago at 2.3 million up to 3.5 million, and now it's in excess of the minimum requirement of the 50% operating costs in the fund. So you have a pretty good cash balance in the electric utility. Stormwater fund also has a pretty good cash flow. Again, you can see you were at almost no cash 4 years ago, and you built that up to 334,000, which is about 200,000. So again, the purpose of the fund is to cover your costs plus build up future funds for future capital needs. And you're paying off your debt too. You can see you're 1 million down to 843,000 over 4 years. Golf fund cash flows, you can see you were about break even 4 years ago, a little bit behind there. 2016 wasn't too good there, and then 2017 fell behind again here. So you can see your operating receipts have been, actually went down a little bit, but you can see your operating expenses maintained or went up a little bit also. As shown by this graph, you can see that your cash actually was in pretty good position here, and then went backwards by about 109,000 in 2017. You'll see on the next page too what caused that. And your minimum requirements are about just under 600,000, so you're a little bit short in what you want to have as your minimum requirement in the golf fund. And the debt is being paid off here as well. You can see here your operating revenues from 16 to 17 actually decreased by about $74,000, but your expenses went up about $57,000. So that caused, an operating loss of almost more than double what it was in the previous 2 years at $250,000. And then you can see the effect on cash here too. From the transfers into your debt service and to operations, your total cash change was 108, and overall 134,000 was the difference between your excess to operations and your change in cash. So, where last year these were positive numbers here. So you can see what the effect is of, obviously your revenues decreased and the expenses increased, and what the effect that had on the operation. And obviously the weather had something to do with that in 2017 also, but still, again, looking at, if revenues decrease and you're getting less money in the door, you may have to look at cutting some operating costs or just monitoring that as well. You can see that, again, general fund is subsidizing this annually of $121,000 per year too. Ambulance, not a whole lot of activity there. Pretty much just lease rental income coming in, some minor disbursements. Again, has built up a pretty sizable cash balance here of $140,000. You only need about a couple thousand to operate with there, so this has some excess funds in it. And again, that one we put at 25% because you don't have any capital needs in that fund, so that one don't need those dollars. They builds up funds there. You can see you did have $724,000 4 years ago, and that was a one-time transfer to the Economic Development Authority Industrial Park for $600,000. That reduced that cash down to about $150,000. Is there anything gone over that you have questions on yet, or want to discuss? Well, then we have some ratios that compare the city of Prague to other similar-sized cities in the state of Minnesota. Your debt service coverage is 0.7. It's pretty gone up from 4 years ago. That means you're generating $1.70 for every dollar of principal and interest for your enterprise funds and debt. So that's pretty comparable, or in excess of what the peer group is. Peer group is at about 1.1. Your debt per capita has decreased from 4 years ago, high of $7,400 down to $5,900 as you're paying your debt off. Obviously, the sewer fund debt is a major part of this. As you compare yourself to the peer group, that $30 million obligation. Taxes per capita, just comparatively over 4 years, it really hasn't increased much. You're at 519 4 years ago, and you're at 533, and it's pretty much right in line with the peer group at about 510. So pretty comparable there. Spending per capita, current spending is about $1,501 per capita there. Probably a lot of that had to do with the pool improvement, the funding for that. In your Public Utilities Commission debt to asset ratio, you're right in line with the peer group, 26 compared to 30. It's been pretty stable over 4 years. Pretty good debt service coverage of 3.4 to 1 compared to 3.6. Debt per capita, pretty low. Mostly in the water fund, you're on your debt and electric, so that's pretty low as your peer group. And your capital assets left to depreciate are right in line with the peer group at about 40%. And unrestricted net position is a little bit higher than the peer group at 57% compared to 51%. So that's how much you have in your net position unrestricted to pay for your operating expenses. Future accounting standards, I guess that one could have been taken off because they didn't realize them. Oh, I guess I didn't say you already implemented 2017, but that would have been for next year. And then you have some other governmental accounting standard board changes that I don't believe has a significant effect on the cities for the future. One that might have some effect is leases, and that's for 2020. Anything that you would have as an operating lease right now might be construed as a capital lease, so you record both the asset and the capital obligation, just like you would for any other debt instrument starting in 2020. But I don't think we have a lot of significant operating leases, so that would be a major change there. So again, a lot of information that Aaron and I have gone over. Feel free to stop in here and ask any questions you might have of us.
Amy's got posters here, so
I
you're in
have
trouble.
when Aaron was talking about the debt service funds, there's one, and it's noted that there's one that's matured and can be closed. I'm assuming that is the 2011A. That's page 13 in the book.
Yep.
So, and it's just clarification. So right now there's a positive cash balance, so could that be paid off and then used for the other bond? Is that how our policy works?
Yeah, you could, if you have the excess cash sitting there,
Okay.
you would be able to pay that bond off early if you
All right.
wanted to.
I'm assuming Patty has that all, she does all that, but I just want to make sure that that's what that note was referring to.
Yeah, assuming it's a
Okay.
callable bond.
All right.
Yep.
And then the next page, page 14, there was the tax abatements. What was the, one is done, completed, but what is the second tax abatement?
They're both done, they were both charged.
They both were charged,
They both
okay.
were charged.
All right, okay.
And so after closing those out, those are the assets that we have remaining due to the process that we went through and closing up that chart project and the clawback.
All right. That's all I had.
Yeah, so like, I think we would discuss this prior to the meeting about these tax abatements. If the dollars were provided internally then, and there's no outside restriction on those, you can close those to another fund as well and use it for other projects within the city.
Anyone have any other questions?
I don't.
The only question I have is Patty gave us the golf jet, or the golf course operation summary. So if I look at this for 2017, does it show that cash flow, we lost 120,000? Is that roughly right?
This is probably more of an operational statement. It does not show that what I showed there. I mean, if you want to look at your cash flow statement, that's where you can see where your, cash increase or decrease was.
Okay, and is that in the other book?
Yeah, that would be in there. Yeah, it would be in probably around page 50 or so, high 40s or 50. It would show what each of your enterprise funds generated from operating, capital, and debt-related activities, non-operating, non-capital financing activities, and then investing activities.
That's non-major.
Oh, golf course is not major, yeah. So then it would be behind the notes, and it'd be like these. Should be like the first one right after the notes there.
Be page 106.
Yeah, so if you look at 106 there, you can see that from operations, the golf club had a negative 96,000, and last year was negative 38,000 from operations. Then obviously, you got the subsidization of the city's general fund that provided 122 and 123,000 there to fund the operations. And then your capital and financing activities used up 134,000 this year compared to 100 last year. And keep in mind that 125 of that was for capital, construction of capital assets or acquisition, and 85,000 was borrowed from the general fund to pay for that, and it'll get paid back by the golf course operations. So again, overall, $108,000 decrease in cash compared to a $15,000 decrease the previous year. But again, from operations, you can say that about 58,000, that was the major change there. It was basically just your operations at a decrease in, or a use of cash of more than the previous year of 58,000. And then obviously with the capital spending, you spent 125 but only borrowed 85. So again, about 40 there.
Mm-hmm.
Where you spent money on capital improvements, but only borrowed 86,000 from the general fund.
Right.
So the combination of those two was basically your 108,000.
Yeah, those are the golf carts. Okay.
I just have a quick question, probably more to Mike, I think, on this, because it might relate more to city policy, but just on page 15 and 16 of the management letter, for example, the water utility fund, and then on the next page, the sewer utility fund, there's significant
additional extra cash there? What is there a level that we're supposed to be at? Or want to be at?
Yeah, but as we were talking ahead of the meeting, that was my concern as to how this is interpreted. What we have to take a look at, what you don't see in here is, as he alluded to in his presentation, is we have fairly significant increases in the long term with the debt payments on the payment of the plan. We had to get them to a certain level. We've been fortunate in adding cash the last couple of years with our SAC fees and the settlement of the Cedar Lake arbitration. So that's what improved. When we take a look at the 16 and the 17 years where we've had additional cash come in. But what we have to take a look at in there is not only the scope of debt service, but as he alluded to, the monies that we set aside for capital replacement. If you remember, December this year, Glenn, we bought new membranes or filters that essentially we paid cash for because we had set money aside.
Right.
So without using Kyle's kind of simple graphs this way, what you have to take a look at or dive into is how much is set aside for capital replacement, how much is future debt service, what kind of capital projects do you have coming on, i.e. he mentioned as we take a look at it, it's not factored in here, is that we will probably have some projects in 2019, the 2020 project with that all of that will then be added into this that will end up reducing cash because of the debt service that goes with that. So while it appears it's moved up to a certain level, is that you have to look at why do we have it, what is it being used for, and what are those future obligations.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. Just when you add them together, it's almost $5 million. You know,
Yes,
the complaints that we get on our water bills and everything else is. I just wanted to see if there was some room that we could, you know, negate some of that, but that
Well,
makes sense.
there's a debt service. You remember years ago back in trying to reduce some of the increases that were put into play, the plant debt service was increased from 20 years to 30 years. And so in the out years, and I'd asked Patty, we didn't have it here for tonight, but as we take a look at that, when we come back to doing the budget, and that is to help you understand and take a look at what makes up part of those cash reserves, what are they allocated for, that on you know, a simple look at a graph like this, you might think, well, we have too much cash, can't we reduce rates? Well, without understanding the rest of the picture that comes with that, you're not seeing all of that at this place.
So at what level what level or how much are we gonna increase that? I mean, is there a level that we're comfortable at that?
Well, if you remember, we kind of do that planning when we take a look at working with Princeton. Every year we put the budget together, we do a 10-year outlook.
Okay.
And so in there is we're trying to manage what's happening if we do our best guess look ahead with certain assumptions as far as cost of operations, cost of utilities, those kinds of things. What our existing debt service is, what are the projects we're taking on, what do we have for capital replacement. In that scenario, you can see where the cash balance is going up and down in that process. And so I can't show it to you here in this picture, but as we look at that 10-year financial that we do looking ahead, you'll have a better picture of where that cash balance goes.
Okay, thank you.
Isn't that?
I think maybe next year we can look at changing the graph and kind of putting in some of those reserves amount too. That would help show a clearer picture on what those dollars are going to be used for.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? You had all your post-it things?
Yeah, the questions, they were in the presentation.
All right. Oh, good.
Kyle, any general observation overall as to the change in fiscal position or assessment of the operations for 2017?
No, I think again, overall, most of your funds are in pretty good position. Even, you know, if you look at the golf course, it has some cash. Just one of the things, just monitor it to see that, hey, how are we doing? Is it draining cash, or, you know, how are we going to address this in that situation? Or, you know, like Mike said, your enterprise funds. What are your purposes for the funds? Just like you designate and assign dollars in the general fund for the amount above the 50%. What are your projects? What are your future debt service payments there too, as well in the enterprise fund. So, but overall, you know, I'd say it's in pretty good financial shape.
Okay.
Do you think our bond rating could move up? Just general, I mean, do you think there's a possibility of that?
Part of the challenge in that is the assessment of the local economy. We look at that, and, you know, as we finish this, we go to work with financial advisors, Springstead, Terry, even that group, trying to take a look at that and the questions that get asked in the areas that are subject to review. And so we try to break those pieces down. And some of the challenges in trying to move up, even though financially we're in good shape in most all of our funds, at least have a little bit of the golf fund, but on whole and on par, that's where you get looked at as to, you know, how are you doing in budget, how are you doing in your financial picture, so to speak. But there are external things that you can't control that looks at the area as part of that rating. And so as we touch base with her, we can try to take a look at that and see where she thinks where we're at and what some of those factors are that maybe could be addressed the next time we get ready to go on the issue.
Okay.
No, I was going to mention too with the bond rating, when you have your bond rating calls, sometimes we sit in on them, and if there's questions that the advisor has there, you know, we've been able to answer that for some of our smaller cities, and where, you know, maybe we have some insight into certain things there that, you know, might help.
Awesome. If there's no other questions, thank you both very much for coming tonight and giving us the good news again. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
So I guess if there's no other questions or issues, I guess I'll make a motion to approve the 2017 annual budget.
Second.
Or annual audit. Second by Sean Ryan. If there's no other comments, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Passes 5-0. Very good. Next, Ken, I assume you got the next couple?
Start with variance B1 2018. And Justin McCormick, the applicant, is here if you have any questions for him. Second row. A little background, Mr. McCormick is looking for a variance for a 6-foot tall privacy fence in his rear yard that abuts County Road 29. Within 30 feet of that road right away, the ordinance limits that fence to be 4 feet tall, so you'd like 2 extra feet for more privacy. Subject to a clear zone to the trail, which we added to the ordinance in the fall. And there's one minor adjustment to that. The trail kind of curves around the corner on the east side of his property line. And he'd like to be able to line that up straight so there's not a kind of a curve or a jog in the fence. So we'll show that in the photos here in a minute. But he would like the fence for cutting down on noise pollution, privacy from the trail and the county road, and then also just security reasons. There's a lot of foot traffic on the trail and continues to increase every year as well. And I'll show you pictures next, but he is planning to match the wooden fence that his neighbor actually has up to the east or west side of his property, excuse me. The neighbor's fence directly to the west was put up in 2006, and that actually met our ordinance at the time that measured roadway height in comparison to the height of the fence on the property. Basically had to exceed 4 foot in height as measured from the roadway. Last fall we got rid of that provision, which is why Mr. McCormick had to apply for the variance to get the same height fence as the neighbor to the west. Planning Commission did review the matter at their meeting on April 25th, and we did have one comment from the applicant, as noted, that the fence would match the neighbors to the west. So that was the only comment we had at the meeting. So you can see Mr. McCormick's property has a city trail on the east property line and then along the south property line there. You can kind of see how the trail curves in at the corner here. Normally we require the 2 foot setback, but in order to keep that fence lining up with the neighbors to the west, allowing that to go a little bit closer, obviously not into the trail, but kind of squared off and then go back up to the corner of the fence and over. Shouldn't be any issue for snow removal or anything like that. Some other considerations, the green line is actually the 30-foot setback line where that fence height can increase to the 6 feet per the ordinance. So you can see there wouldn't be much of any backyard that could be enclosed. It's about 13 feet from the rear of the home to that point at which the taller fence would be allowed. Other things to take into consideration that the County Road 29 right-of-way is rather wide. So even until you get from the curb line of the road to the applicant's property line, you're already 34 feet away. So you've got a good distance. You've got height variation where that fence in that backyard is actually lower than County Road 29. It's about 2.5 feet lower, in fact. That contributes to the less impact visually for that fence, which is kind of the reason that provision remains in the ordinance today. Here's some photos of the applicant's backyard. Take a look, kind of see how it slopes down to the trail and then back up to County Road 29. The neighbor's 6-foot tall fence. You kind of see that there, so you're not getting a full 6-foot visual impact of that fence. This is probably the one that shows it the best. You're a bit lower in the backyard, so Planning Commission and staff recommendation on the fence was to approve the variance as noted in the resolution which is attached to the memo. And I'm going to back up a slide here for a couple photos. And if you have any questions, again, the applicant is in the audience. Should you have any question for him?
Okay, anyone have any questions?
No, straightforward. I just have a quick question on where the two intersect, the two walking paths or whatever. Bringing that fence all the way up next to that, is that going to prevent or, present the accident? If somebody's riding their bike down the one heading south and one's going on the other way to the east, because it's going to be kind of like a blind approach.
Yeah, that could be a valid point.
Can we put a little stop sign or something along the trail? I mean, don't you see where that could happen if somebody's coming?
We could look at that. I don't know if we have that much traffic today that would be a concern, but in the future, certainly. Yeah, it's something we could look at just a lot of people don't even know that the trail necessarily goes that direction, so regardless of the fence or not, you could have somebody just flying on.
Yeah, you'll never see them with that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So, I mean, I'm fine with the fence, I just think that...
Yep, no, that's probably something we should look into.
Okay.
Just to direct people, if they want to go back up in the neighborhood, they go that way, if anything else, just to draw their attention to it.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? If not, I guess I'll look for a motion to approve the variance.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion, Sean, you made it?
Yeah.
Motion by Sean Ryan, second by Amy Jurek. If there's not any other comments or questions, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, passes 5-0. Enjoy your fence.
Thank you.
Is it fence day today?
We got another one right down the block. As noted on the agenda, we have variance V2 2018, right down the block from the other one, again on Olivia Street here. Applicant is Luther Onken. It does not look like he's here tonight, but we'll run through the report. Again, the previous applicants about half a block down to the west, or to the east side of this particular property, and this home is very new, so it doesn't even show up on the air photo. Almost same exact circumstances as the variance we just reviewed. This one in particular is a little bit more interesting in that the applicant is looking at putting up a 6-foot tall white privacy fence, a vinyl fence. He's actually only looking to fence the rear property line at this point, not actually bring it up to the back corners of the house. Planning Commission talked about that and recommended actually approving it to go back to the house should he change his mind after putting up just the fence along the trail. Might as well approve that while we're looking at the area along the trail. And again, the Planning Commission reviewed, and we didn't have any comments received on the April 25th meeting. So this home actually used up basically all the way to the setback line. So they didn't have any area in their backyard that they could even fence at 6 foot tall if they wanted to. Back of the house is within inches of that 30-foot setback line. So again, applicant is proposing to put that fence paneling up along just the rear lot line, but we want to include in the variance to come all the way back up and close it off in the typical backyard fashion, should he change his mind at some point in the future, similar to the other applicants that we look at. So this particular lot is a little more level with the road, still about a foot, foot and a half lower than the roadway adjacent, depending on which part you look at. You can see obviously this corner of the home is actually about a half foot lower at the rear corner, and then up by the patio is a foot to maybe a foot and a half difference, depending on where you're measuring from. So the impact is a little higher, but you still got the vast distance between the edge of the roadway and the trail before you can get to the rear property line. Some other views here for you. So again, the visual impact should be fairly low to the adjacent trail and visual of County 29. You can see their patio goes nearly to the rear lot line, so that fence would basically come in 2 feet off the trail. Slide there. So the planning commission did recommend approval, a 5-0 vote to approve the variance. Again, with the resolution drafted in front of you to approve the variance request.
Any questions or comments? There's no ordinance or anything regarding how far the patio has to be away from the fence?
We do not. No, they said had to keep the patio out of the easement area, which they did, and we've obviously got the fence that happens to be kind of between the trail and there. So the trail will be 2 feet clear zone from the fence, and then the patio will be, I don't know, maybe 2-3 feet from there as well.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? If not, I guess I'll make a motion to approve the variance with the stipulation to include putting the sides to complete the boundary of the backyard.
Second.
Second by Dave Brujek. Any other comments or questions? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good evening.
We advertised for seal coat bids, and instead of putting the map in the packet, we just put it up there. The red highlights the streets that we plan on seal coating this year, which total $92,100 and took it away from me. 92,165 square yards. Advertised again as we do every year. We got 4 companies that turned in sealed bids for the project. This year, the cheapest company was Pearson Brothers, $1.07 a square yard. On the back of this handout is the history of what we paid for seal coating in the past. So it's kind of interesting to see how it's kind of gone. But that's a good price. We were told last year when we were asking the companies that bid last year for us, what should we expect? And they were, again, they seemed to always tell us, plan for a lot more money next year. And it didn't come true, which is good. So Pearson Brothers is seal coated here in town. Last year is the first year they haven't seal coated here in New Prague for I bet you 15 years. So you know, we know the company. They've always done a good job. They've always stood behind any minor trouble they've had because of the seal coat didn't stick or whatever happened to it. So we've never had any problems with the company at all. So staff recommends approve the low bid from Pearson Brothers at $1.07 a square yard, and also the line striping, which is happening on Alton, Chalupski, for $1,796 for a total project cost of $100,412.55.
Okay. If we approve tonight, when do you expect this to happen?
A lot quicker than we want them here. Probably by 1st of June.
Okay.
Yeah, which because of the spring has caused everybody a lot of trouble. We got, we have to try to go through all these roads and do any minor repairs, any mill work next to the curb line, So we started banging away at that today, so hopefully we can get that done before they roll into town. But we, just like everybody else, kind of lost a month there, so we gotta go by their schedule as best we can. They're usually pretty good to us. If we tell them that we got work to do, they usually try to work around us and do other communities first. So.
When was the last time that seal coating had been done in that area?
Would have been 5 years ago, 4 years ago, almost 5.
Oh, okay. It just seems like.
We kind of, and that will change. You know, we live by the 4 to 5 year plan on roads that have been seal coated, but it will change as far as some of these roads that have, I'll say, a lot of shade from trees, not much traffic, things like that. You can sometimes push them out to the 5 year. You get like a 10th Avenue that's got a load of traffic on it, which causes heat, creates a lot of trouble on a road. You'll sometimes try to move that back down to 3 years because you're already losing that oil that was in that asphalt. And that's the theory behind seal coating, is you're kind of trying to rejuvenate that tar or that asphalt by giving it a fresh drink of oil. You know, the rock goes on there just to open the road up for traffic. The rock doesn't really do a lot as far as making the seal coat last longer. It just gives you the capability of opening that road up for traffic right away, instead of having to shut down the road for 4 to 8 hours because it's got to dry.
Okay, any other questions or comments? If not, I guess I'll look for a motion to approve the bid by Pearson Brothers to do the seal coating.
So.
I'll second.
Okay, I got a motion by Dave Brusick, second by Maggie Bass. Any other questions or comments? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Okay. Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you.
Passes 5-0. Ken, I assume you're taking this one also?
Give it a shot.
Give it your best shot then.
All right. This is an interesting legal matter that we had that came up. It was about a year and a half ago, probably. We were notified by the attorney of Miss Elizabeth Gill, who had purchased the property at 107 Columbus Avenue North, that there was a ambiguity in the legal description, and a survey was done by Bolton and Eick that appeared to identify basically that her property was overlapping into the city's electric utility department warehouse here. Which is kind of a mid-block parcel just north of Main Street, just to the east side of St. Lawrence. Upon hearing of that, we had, actually the Utility Commission paid for a survey of their own property to see exactly how that situation would line up with our own survey. And we also found a gap on the property as well. Where the gap basically is coming from is the Gill property is described, none of this is platted property, I should know, it's all meets and bounds descriptions, so you're a little bit at the mercy of the old descriptions that were done. You know, some of these houses are near 100 years old in this particular area, and it's a pretty common thing that when we have unplatted property in these older parts of New Prague, there's some issues with the legal descriptions that come up from time to time. This one happened to involve city property. But the Gill property is described off Columbus Avenue North, and it obviously is not a true north. So as you describe it, it's skewed a little bit, so you start going that way, and then they just basically have a description that says it goes back, 150 feet to the rear lot line. When you're on a curve, it kind of skews the whole property a little bit. Our property is described off Lincoln Avenue North, which is on the other side of the block. So when the two meet, they don't exactly line up. So what we get is a gap that's kind of a triangle-shaped gap about 4 to 8 inches, and then going the length of the property, which it's so small you can't even see the gap along the rear of the Gill property here. And then it also partially involves property at 109 on the north side. It was also included in this specific quiet title matter. So Ms. Gill and their attorney, Chris Neisen, did file paperwork for a quiet title action. With our survey and with Canadian Graven's office, Brian Lahinger, who actually is more proficient in these items than Scott, took a look at it. I obviously had taken a look at this on the 2 different surveys as well. And basically what we determined is that this small triangular strip of land, Miss Gill probably had a better claim to that strip, just being as she abuts Columbus Avenue North, and our property's kind of in the middle of the block and is described off Lincoln, which is, we don't abut that, so we didn't have as good of an argument. And over a few inches of land, really didn't think it was worth thousands of dollars in legal costs to go through that. I should point out that Ms. Gill's attorney is not claiming any extra land that their legal description doesn't already claim. It just so happens, again, that both the descriptions happen to show an overlap. So theoretically, we are giving up land, and theoretically, Ms. Gill is not gaining any land. It's just clarifying the boundary line once and for all moving forward. And in order to take care of that, the city can only dispense of property by ordinance. And as with any other ordinance, we have to introduce the ordinance in one meeting and then approve it at the next meeting. So that is the legal, our attorney's opinion and staff's opinion as well to quitclaim deed this small triangle of land to Miss Gill, reestablish that rear property line, and move on.
So what precipitated her to even look at that?
Title company on Miss Gill's property reviewed it and found the overlap.
Okay.
Why it hadn't been found in previous transaction is anybody's guess, but some title companies are a little more particular than others, and they push the issue and stuck with it. And at some cost, we have some cost into it, obviously, for legal review and everything at this point, but it would have been much more expensive to continue to fight that into the future. And we don't have any utilities under that area, and for inches, it's not gonna matter for our use and enjoyment of the property.
Is the ordinance that we're looking at tonight, is that going to take care of the other issue also, or just on the Gill property?
You're talking easement?
Well, no, that you said there's a slight, going north on that property?
This is only for the Gill property.
Okay.
Yeah, only for the Gill property, because they brought the action forward.
Okay. But it doesn't make sense to do it as one?
Mr. Hauer is not seeking that at this point, nor does he have any title work to suggest that they believe that they have an issue on that, so that's why we're not addressing it at this point.
Okay.
It's possible a future buyer could, but until they bring a specific action with a specific proposal for the land, yeah, we don't need to fight that battle at this point.
Okay.
Nor do we have the proper argument from Mr. Hauer's case to do that at this time.
Okay.
It just looks like it goes all the way to First Street Northeast, Ken.
It actually lines back up at some point on Mr. Hauer's property.
Oh, it does?
Yeah. There is another gap there, which is in favor of the city with land that we didn't even know we had. Apparently goes all the way to First Street. Really, the best way to handle the whole situation is to really correct it all, we to replat the entire block, but at what great expense and involving everybody would be quite interesting to accomplish.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, if not, I guess I will make a motion to approve the first reading of the ordinance number 303.
I'll second.
Second by Maggie Bass. If there's no other questions or comments, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Okay, passes 5-0. We'll finish it off next meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the 2018 Board and Commissions. As everyone may be aware or not aware, that we did have interviews last Monday and Tuesday, April 30th and May 1st. We were very fortunate. We had 16 applicants to fill all the openings we had on our boards and commissions. After the Tuesday meeting, the council that was present discussed their options and kind of made a joint unanimous decision. And then yesterday I informed Councilman Ryan of our decisions, and we talked about it yesterday. So without further ado, I'm going to make my recommendations, and then we'll just have to have the council approve it. So I'm going to start with the EDA. We're going to reappoint Nick Slavic full-time, and his term will go to 5/31/2024. And filling the part-time position is Troy Pint, and his term will end in 5/31/2021. On the golf board, we have 3 full-time people that we're filling, and their all terms end on 5/31/2021. And it's Joel Halbermeyer, Tom Mock, and Ken Nielsen. On the park board, we have 1 part-time position, and that is, I'm recommending Amanda Judd for that position, and her term will be ending at 5/31/2020. And the 2 full-time positions, we're going to, Margaret Diane Solheid and Anthony Anderson are going to fill those positions, and their terms will go from 5/31/2022. Planning Commission, we have Paul Tupi, full-time. His term will go till 5/31/2022. And Utility Commission, we're going to reappoint Brian Scope, and his commission seat will go till 5/31/2022. Anyone have any questions?
Just have one. What year are you guys in school?
We're seniors.
Oh, shucks.
We are looking for a youth member on the park board. So if you know anyone, maybe who's a junior or something, or a sophomore that you would think would be interested, we'd appreciate if you could pass that on.
I'm not sure how
All right.
Yeah, otherwise I was suggesting we draft one of you.
Those are my recommendations. Now I need a motion to approve, and
So moved.
Second.
got a motion by Dave Bruzek, seconded by Amy Jurek, to approve the recommendations. If there's no further comment, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, those appointments have been approved. Next on the agenda, we're almost done, guys. Almost done. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. Anyone have any questions or any items of discussion in the consent agenda? Just for you gentlemen, what the consent agenda is kind of like, this is where we approve the minutes of the previous meetings and accounts payable and things that are pretty standard. So rather than have to do a motion on each one, we kind of combine them under the consent agenda.
I'll move that we accept the consent agenda.
Second.
I got a motion by Sean Ryan, seconded by Amy Jurek to approve the consent agenda. There's no other comments or questions. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, consent agenda is approved 5-0. Now the fun part, miscellaneous. Patrick, do you have anything?
Oh, I didn't.
Okay, gentlemen, do you want to address the council at all?
I'm good.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'll
thank
pass.
you. Mitch?
Good.
All right. Glenn?
They started playing ball at Memorial Park this weekend. 2 high school games on Saturday, 1 Orioles on Sunday. Heard a number of good feedback. Actually didn't hear any negatives, so that's always a good thing. I think things are coming together there and looking pretty good.
So after the check that gets finished, what else has to be done with?
We'll do a punch list, or we'll kind of go through
Okay.
and look for fun.
But it's just mostly minor stuff then after?
Yeah, it would just be minor things at that point. We got
Sound system.
Yeah, well, we got to finish the sound system.
Okay.
Hopefully we'll get that done this week. Check deck, that's about it.
Okay. Because I think, what is the state going to be in town May 19th?
You could be right.
Yep, May 19th, I
Yep.
think. Jerry invited me to, I think they're going to meet at the golf course, so.
Yep,
So we should have everything dialed by then, huh?
we should have,
Awesome.
yes.
Good.
That's all I got.
All right, thank you. Ken, anything else?
We wrapped up citywide cleanup this past week with Scott County. You'll probably see a few things still on curbs. We'll get those letters out probably this week to everybody to get those cleaned up. And then we had the shred event again here at City Hall on Saturday. We had almost double the amount of paper shredded this year that we did compared to last year, which was the first year. So we had 8,651 pounds of paper this year versus 4,790 last year. So that went pretty well. The one thing we probably need to communicate better next year's advertisement is the charge for certain electronic items that they will shred electronic. I think they had some issues with TVs and things, which they don't do, first of all, and then some prices on things. So other than that, went really well, and hopefully we can keep doing that with grant money from the county.
Awesome.
So very positive.
Good, thank you. Anything else?
Nope.
Michael?
I sent you out an email late this afternoon, but I'll just update you. We received information from the senior housing project property owner that the name of the new senior project has a name, and it will be known as the Prague Village. And underneath it, it talks about seniors living well. Is going to be the theme of what they have. And they also indicated that their marketing office will be open May 21st, and that's located at 803 First Street Southeast in the strip mall there, excuse me, between Lady's Cupcakes and Great Clips. And they will have floor plans and pricing will be available at that time. So anybody that's interested in a unit in the senior housing project can find out more information. They said walk-ins are welcome, however, staffed hours will vary, and so we have a telephone number if anybody needs to make a phone call to set up an appointment. We've got that information available now. So they've progressed, and it will now be known as the Prague Village.
And it's going fast.
Yeah, the construction, Ken, any observations on construction?
Yeah, they're doing quite well. I'm not going to quite say they're ahead of schedule, but they are doing as much as they plan to be at this point. They're doing just fine. So.
Okay. And Ken, what about Quick Trip?
Quick Trip, they plan to get the retaining wall. I don't know if they get it totally done this week, but that and underground tanks are what they're focusing on here to kind of get the site basically set in order, and then they claim they'll be open right after Labor Day. So pretty quick.
Good. Mike, anything else?
No.
Sean?
Nope.
David?
Nope.
Amy?
Yes.
She's
You
got
went a
big-
different order today. Mr. Turner, are you the Turner that received the scholarship?
Yep.
So the utilities give out a scholarship, have done for years, for giving back to our community, and Mr. Turner was the recipient this year. He wrote an essay, and that will be forwarded on to the state.
Congratulations.
Too bad. Nice job.
And where are you going to school?
I'm looking at the Luther University of Marion, North Dakota.
Okay.
Still deciding.
Good.
And Glenn, while we were talking about seal coating, what about the trail maintenance? And maybe it's a question for Ken, I don't know, but like behind Fishtail, I know it was crumbling, and then over behind 3rd Street, that pond, there's some reeds coming up through it. What are the plans for
The trail by, in Greenway and through there,
yes,
that we're hoping to do when we do that end of town in 2021.
okay,
The theory behind that is once you have a contractor in town, little jobs like that don't cost you a lot more money compared to just hiring somebody to come in and do a little job like that.
okay.
So that is our hope, that we can make that last that long.
All right. That's all I have.
Okay, Maggie?
Yes, I just wanted to bring everyone up to speed on what you might be hearing about the aquatic facility and a new fitness facility. So I've got some talking points here that I typed out, and I'm going to read them just so I don't forget anything. So I just want to let you know that there's going to be a press release from the Mayo Clinic Health System, presumably this week in the New Prague Times, regarding discussions with the New Prague area schools of a proposal to add a fitness facility to the current indoor aquatic facility. The discussions evolved into a proposal that this facility will replace the fitness center currently owned and managed by the Mayo. Tim Dittbertner, the superintendent of New Prague Area Schools, proposed adding a fitness facility to the aquatic facility at an earlier Joint Powers board meeting. And he mentioned he was going to reach out to Mayo for additional information and guidance. And the reason for this is that the aquatic facility memberships sold are below the projections. And Tim feels that a combined fitness and aquatic facility with one membership will draw more people into purchasing those memberships. So through Tim, it was later learned that the Mayo wants to divest from the fitness center. It doesn't fit their model any longer. And so it formed into the Mayo making a proposal to divest themselves of the fitness center and perhaps move some of that equipment and members over to the fitness facility at the aquatic facility. And I just want to point out that the Joint Powers Board and of course the city never proposed to take over the fitness center or purchase the fitness center. This was a proposal brought to us by Mayo. At our last Joint Powers Board meeting, Mary Klimp with Mayo presented essentially information about the fitness center that included equipment, classes, high-level financials, how many members they have, and then Mayo's vision for using the existing space of the fitness center, and then also talking about transitioning members and equipment to a new facility at the aquatic facility. So the Joint Powers Board did approve to advance into further discussions regarding the proposal. We did caution that we're not approving the proposal, but just allowing discussions to continue to better understand its implications and its costs, so that the board can conduct its due diligence. Mary then asked if she could publish a press release regarding the discussions to staunch rumors out there about the fitness center and what its future is, and so also that she could have discussion with the current employees of the fitness center to help them understand where this is going and not cause them too much concern. So Tim Dittbertner at the May 14th school board meeting, which I believe is next Monday, is going to just update the school board about what's going on, and he has invited the city council to attend if he would like to. And I think Mary Klimp's presentation, Tim Dittbertner's presentation, and Sandy Lynn's financials will be presented at the school board meeting, so you can get a full picture of what that is. That's what I had.
When was that? The 14th. It's a Monday?
Yes.
Yeah.
May 14th at 6 p.m.
Okay.
It's a choir.
Maggie, is there sufficient room for all that equipment?
There is. So there is what they're calling the stage area, which they store, just use for storage, and then there's another area adjacent to that. So I think all in all, and Sean, didn't they talk about 6,000 square feet
I think that was about right.
for the cardio equipment, and I think another 1,800 square feet for a free weight area. The existing gym there would also be used for aerobic classes as an open gym facility. He's talking also about childcare, a limited number of hours. The Mayo said that about 27 pieces of the cardio and the weight stack machines would be given to the facility, so there wouldn't have to be a purchase of as much equipment. So they took a look at the space availability. They're already talking about punching out areas to put in windows and where to put in mirrors, and so they're just getting some conceptual design at this point. There was rebate money that the school received for the construction of the aquatic facility, and that dollar amount that they received, they feel that will cover the build-out costs. However, there also is discussion about the city potentially putting in some money. We don't know what that dollar amount is, and so that's why we're proceeding with further discussions.
Can I ask for clarification, just because I know how rumors go? So, because when the facility was being built, at that time, I know they approached him and the fitness center didn't want anything to do with the facility at that time. And so this is just, they wouldn't have a fitness center anymore, it would just be integrated into the aquatic, so would it have the name?
It would not, yeah,
Okay.
so they're totally divesting, they want to divest from the fitness center. And then Tim is suggesting that the Joint Powers Board then take over and we would have to obviously revise the Joint Powers Agreement to include that, the new facility, and then all of the operations would fall under Tim's administration. So what the Mayo is proposing to do with the fitness center facility now is they have pediatric physical therapy at an office in downtown New Prague. They want to combine all of their physical therapy into one building, and that's what the fitness center would be used for.
Where is this meeting? Is that going to be at school?
It will be at the Community Education Center.
Okay.
At the school board room.
Right.
Okay. Well, very informative. So I assume that Joint Powers did approve the press release since it's going, or did they?
We did not see it prior to it going. Mike was gracious to share it with me. However, I was out of town part of last week and I did not get that until Monday. But Mike did take care of reviewing it. So that's why I wanted to say that just the Joint Powers Board and obviously the City Council did not approach Mayo, talking about purchasing or acquiring the fitness center. This was all a discussion about putting a fitness facility in the aquatic facility, talking with Mayo about getting some guidance and direction, and then it just kind of blossomed into this proposal.
Okay, well, very interesting.
The one other piece that you didn't add on is that they have about 30 different classes that are held both in the morning and after work at night, and that if for some reason there is a discussion and you figure out how to pick it up, it's not likely to be picked up by the other two fitness centers we have, and that appears to be a very, very large part of their program over there is the fitness programs, and so that's the reason to at least have discussion and explore it, see what works, see what doesn't work, and figure out whether there's a possibility of a blending of this versus it totally going away and not even existing.
And the fitness center currently has about 1,000 members, and the projections are, preliminary projections are, is that about 75% of that membership would move over. The other plus to that is they have about 327 seniors that use their Silver and Fit and Silver sneakers, which is at no cost to those seniors, but the fitness center gets a few dollars for each visit. That can only be used at one facility, so if those seniors were to move over to the aquatics center and the fitness facility, they would be able to use all of the amenities under their program.
Okay. Wow, it sounds very interesting. It'd be good to...
So if the council is in concurrence with that, then what I would need to do is that I would need to set that up for a special joint meeting with the school board at 6 o'clock. Ideally, Tim said is he won't have materials to me till probably Thursday. So depending on the time and when those come in, as we either get those out on Thursday or Friday ahead of the joint special meeting at 6 o'clock on that Monday.
Okay. Sounds good. Anything else, Maggie?
Other than you do have a copy of the press release that Mike provided this evening.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I don't have anything, so I guess I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second by Dave Brusick. All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. We're adjourned, everyone. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming. I hope you learned